So I thought I'd take the traditional, this workplace has gone so many days without an accident example, and just like adapt it a little bit to like, what if your accidents were T-Rexes eating your employees? Let's just make it a little more interesting. So the days without accident example. So this is going to show you how I think about seeing observables in places where you might not have seen them before. So here is, let's say this is some log file output, right? And it says that you've gone 270 days without an accident on the first of the year, and then 271, and oops, an accident occurs. So now your next report, you see these reports go on just literally sequentially, but they start over, right? So can you see two streams of things happening kind of at the same time here? A stream of daily reports, just kind of goes every day but resets, and a stream of, yes, we're doing awesome. So we could write an application with this log output if we could make these streams work together, right? So to help make working with streams / observables, I'll use those interchangeably. They're roughly equivalent. To help make them easier, I wrote a library called RxHelper. And RxHelper has a wiki where I've written up like examples of like, you might use it in this way. So Inbox Radio, it deals with audio files. But maybe you're more interested in a case study of days without accident, or if you play a game that recognizes a cheat code, like only if you hit like AAA, BBA, like in a sequence, will it do something? I've got a wiki entry for that using observables and various other wiki entries. So this is a wiki entry in RxHelper site. And I also have an interactive version of this that we can play with in RunKit, okay? So in RunKit, let me just show you. This is like kind of like Code Sandbox, or if you've used one of those things, it just lets you live edit your code. And down here, you see the actual output. Let me see, first zoom the font of my browser. And yeah, this one's been a little bit more adorned. So yeah, so here you can see a simplified version of what you just saw. Daily report 0. Oops, T-Rex came, ate 6 of your coworkers. Days without an accident is back down to 0 or 1. So I'm going to dissect this, right? Okay, number one, at the very top there are some imports. RxJS, RxJS compatibility layer. Those are what are needed to create the observables. So my library helps you work with them very effectively, but you need to create them somehow, so you need this library. Then you import RxHelper, and that gives you something called an agent. And I like to think of an agent as something or someone who can do things on your behalf. So what the agent will do, first you'll set up the agent. You'll say, here's how you are to behave. When you are told to start, we're going to create an interval. This comes from the RxJS package, the interval. It's a little bit like setInterval, but it's an observable, it's an interval. So every 1,000 seconds, with the delay occurring so that it occurs in the middle of the second, we're not going to use real days, with a probability of 1 out of 4, then we'll create a random number of casualties, and we only need 3 accidents to prove our point. So this says, again, like the condition, this is like an event handler, but it's an event handler that returns an observable. When I'm told to start, I will return an observable of casualty accidents, and these are event handlers that cause more events to happen. So these will become events of type accident. I'm going to take away this filter part for a second, literally comment it out, and then say also on a start or an accident, we're going to start counting up by seconds, just keeping track of our count as we go. The interval observable gives us 0, 1, 2, 3 over time. And so we'll just turn them into actions of type daily report. And again, I'm going to comment something out here and show you how the code evolves. So we set up event handlers. These event handlers trigger additional events. And we won't fire any event handler unless we tell the agent, our little helper object, process an action of type start, which will then cause that event handler to run. So then there's just a little utility function to format. And so if I run this, what I've commented out is the filter. So I'm going to have to explain filters because there's no output here. So rest assured, we did process an action of type start. And these observables are churning out accidents and daily reports. Wouldn't we like to see them? Do you ever find yourself opening up an existing function to put a console log inside of it? I do that all the time. But with filters, you don't need to. You can just say, it is a filter. So in other words, run actions through that meet this criteria. This is a function that always returns true. So for every action, figure out its type and payload, and format and log it. So I've just enabled a filter, and now each action becomes visible in the console log output. Okay. Started at 0. We can go on to the next page. Here you see you're counting. Now, who can tell me funny about these daily report counts? They're asynchronous, right? All that crazy async junk is happening. And we don't want it to, right? So I'll tell you what's actually happening is upon an accident happening, you're getting a new timer started, but you're not killing the old one. So you're seeing a 1 and a 0, a 2 and a 1, a 3 and a 2, and a 4 and a 3. And this little operator here, concurrency cutoff, means if you were counting, stop and start over. So if I run this one, now you'll see 0, casualty 6, 0, 1, and you've cut off the old timer when you've gone. This is probably a different way of writing programs than you're used to, or apps as they call them. Any questions, any changes you'd like me to make this on the fly? Like, hey, Dean, what if you did X? What would it do? I'm happy to play with this simple example. I do think it'll be easier using this agent library than just starting from the RxJS docs. I do think it will be easier, so you could give it a shot. And that's why I put a whole bunch of stuff in the wiki, to have different scenarios.